the people of Kenya don't eat titles. They are interested in the services that we deliver to them. So I'm not bothered about what people say.
You are the current Interior Secretary,
yes.
And then you have a new expanded role by the President that was announced. So in this new role, what have you been able to achieve so far in terms of oversight?
I think, in a minute to explain this so that I think we are on the same page. The President, in Executive Order Number 1 of 2019, created a framework where all members of Cabinet spend time looking at national government development projects across the board. And then the structure is cascaded down to the Technical Committee of the Principal Secretaries, which is chaired by the Principal Secretary in charge of Interior and Coordination of National Government. And then from there, the implementation framework is cascaded to the regions, headed by regional commissioners, and to the counties by the county commissioner. The intention of the President, and it's outlined in Executive Order Number 1, is number 1, alignment of the implementation process so that everyone is on the same page in terms of planning and implementing national government development programs. The President wanted us to spend time together, because one of the greatest challenges of implementation of national government programs is bureaucracy. And this the public knows is not a secret. Sometimes we waste so much time writing letters to each other, writing memos to each other. Ministries that occupy the same building, one is on 4th floor, another is on 7th floor, they write memos to each other and write letters to each other and so on. And in the last 2 months, it's amazing. I mean, on the Treasury's own records, it's evident that the spending on national government projects has tripled since the committee came into being. Why? Because it's easier to move resources, because we sit around the table, we all agree on what needs to be done, and we all interrogate each other in terms of the steps we are taking, and everyone brings to the table their perspectives from their ministries, and we're able to move forward faster. So that is really the whole purpose of the committee meeting, looking at what needs to be done and so on. Now we are reviewing several projects. I mean, Kenyans know for a fact there are so many national development projects that have stalled, others are slow. Some of them have stalled because either A, they were allocated less resources than they ought to have been allocated. Others have suffered implementation challenges. So we're now moving, from project to project, sector to sector, looking at what are the implementation challenges, and then we spend time resolving them. And I frankly think a hell lot of work is happening, and we are achieving our objectives.
Quoting the President, when he was giving the State of the Nation address, he mentioned that there are plans that are underway currently to see that we have an expanded border police unit. And what are the current plans in light of that? And also looking at the current situation that we're facing, the recent abduction of Cuban doctors, in the general term of border patrol and border security.
Well, Dennis, as you know, since September last year, precisely on 13th of September last year, the President outlined a raft of measures and actions to be taken by ourselves at the Ministry and by our colleagues at the National Police Service to take the police reform to another phase, as it were. What that entails is realigning resources, looking into the police and looking at the resources that we have, and ensuring that we deploy the meager resources we have effectively, so that we can secure the country and we can provide the requisite security to enable economic activity to take place in the country and to enable Kenyans to move around and live peacefully as an independent people. And so much has happened following that, and a lot is going on. But the critical, to answer your question directly, is to intensify our border patrol and reorient and redefine the role of the specialized formed units, in addition to what used to be called in the past the Administration Police Service, or what is called the Administration Police Service. And we take a new approach to border management, so that we have more of our resources spent on the management of our border areas, especially where we have certain security challenges, like the border between us and Somalia, the border between us and South Sudan, and so on. And I would like to take the opportunity now I have to assure all Kenyans that our country is safe, to assure all our investors and visitors that our country is safe. We are on the lookout, and when we face challenges such as we do, because all environments around the world face these kind of challenges, you have to measure and look at our experiences. There are many countries around the world where abductions will be a daily affair. We would like to have zero of those kinds of cases, but when 1 or 2 security incidents happen in a span of 3 or 4 years, that shows that we are headed in the right direction.
So there's no cause to worry?
There's no cause to worry at all.
What's the status of arming private guards after the Riverside Drive terror attack? There was conversation around that, and you've been part of that conversation. Where are we with that?
We have drafted regulations. This has to be done within a very stringent regulatory regime. So we've done the regulations and sent to Parliament. And upon Parliament's approval, then we will begin, that process of arming private guards. Let me say this, because there's some debate right now going on in the public, which I think I need to kind of like allude to, so that people can understand this. Dennis, if everyone wants a bodyguard in Kenya, let's be sincere, we can't afford. We can't afford. Our exchequer resources cannot afford. I know every public official, bodyguards have become a status symbol, that, if you are walking around with several police officers, then it shows that you are a very important person, and so on and so forth. So this has been abused, grossly abused in the past. I have to say the truth. And until about 3 years ago, when we started clamping down on this, and actually it started as a decision of the National Security Council under the President to ensure that we have to now operate strictly according to the law and follow the regulations that we have been given, whereby there are those people who are entitled to security or personal security within guidelines that the police has provided. But in the past, you know how sometimes in the past people have, messed up this thing, those who are able to provide support or those who are able to allocate police duties have in the past sometimes made mistakes, regrettable mistakes, I must say, where people who ought not even to be guarded have actually been given police protection. Now, even after we've worked on that consistently, we can tell this, and let me admit, we can't afford a bodyguard for every MCA, every member of parliament, every woman rep, every senator, every governor, every deputy governor, every CEC. Just pause for a moment and count how many people we have in positions of responsibility, especially after Constitution 2010. And if each one of these people come up and say, oh, I think I am important, I'm going to be murdered, give me a bodyguard, then it means that we will not have enough police officers to do what they need to do. So that rationalization is necessary. What happens in other societies is that private security firms are supported by the police, supported through training, for example, and to are managed, and lesser extent, some of them are allowed to carry firearms. So we've written regulations, we've worked with the police and developed a stringent guidelines where the National Police Service, the Inspector General, will assist private firms to train their people even before they apply for firearms. And then even the system of allocating firearms will be superintended over, or it will be managed by the Firearms Licensing Board, so that they are able to determine who is going to be given firearms and so on. And then the respective private security companies take responsibility for that. They themselves again will refer to their own guards and know which one of them are going to be allowed to carry guns. This does not need to alarm Kenyans. We will go into this methodically and very carefully, but the intention really is to ease the pressure on our regular police officers, especially on VIP protection. Why, for example, if you have to provide a bodyguard to every parastatal CEO, every parastatal chairman, my friend, who will then look after Kenyans?
Those ones who will say, in streamlining all this, like you've said, and reforming this, that it's targeting certain groups or certain individuals only, not everybody's being targeted. Again, there's that conversation that comes in to what you've just talked about.
For us, at the decision-making level, there's something we've come to terms with in our country. everything in our country is politicized. Even a glass of water like this can be politicized. I mean, you can say this water was poured by someone who is associated with the other person. And where did they place this glass here and not there? No, they gave you this glass because you are aligned to so and so. You know, such silly things happen in this society. I mean, the police commanders are doing their job as they are supposed to be doing. And the people have been asking me this, and since I have this opportunity, let me say it here. You know, I've been seeing people even, you know, insulting me and my peers at public rallies about bodyguards. There is no minister or PS who allocates police constables duties. This realignment of police and security systems started a while ago. There are cabinet secretaries who have actually had their bodyguards changed. There are cabinet secretaries who used to have, for example, bodyguards from the prison service. A decision was made that the SGB, which is part of the AP, will provide bodyguards and VIP protection. And gradually this is happening across the board. It is not going to happen all at once. So it may happen to you today and it doesn't happen to me. Don't say it's happening to you because you are not a cabinet secretary. Or if it happens to me, I say, oh, people in government are being targeted. How come it never happened to Dennis Okari and so on and so forth? As I said, in our country, everything is politicized. But I want to defend our Inspector General of Police and our wonderful people who are commanding the police. The administrative work that is happening will continue. The reform work will continue. Let us also sometimes, and I ask our colleagues and my fellow citizens and Kenyans, sometimes let's give people the benefit of doubt. There are people who work, for example, in the security sector, like the police commanders or the IG himself and so on. These people are not politicians. They don't have a platform they can defend themselves and so on and so forth. We too are not. We have no platform we can defend ourselves. So if I turn up today and you ask me why I'm wearing a red tie or a purple, I mean, and you politicize it, and all I did is when I woke up in the morning, I just put on a tie and came to work. Let's not read politics into all these things. Let's leave the security people to do their work. And they are doing it for the good of all of us.
In terms of timelines, can you commit to certain timelines on this work in progress, especially the issue of arming private security guards and this current issue? Are there timelines?
You see, as members of the executive branch of government, there are certain timelines we can give you because they are policy things we are going to do. But you see, our actions, especially on arming private guards, is dependent also on the actions of the legislative arm of government. That's why we have sent the regulations there. You understand these days about our country, about public participation and so on and so forth. So all factors are not held constant always. But we are ready on our end because we have an institution to look into this. We have prepared the guidelines. The National Police Service is ready to train and provide support to private security firms. I had a meeting with them here, all of them, and told them that we are ready. They are our citizens. They are providing a very important service, and we work with them very closely. They are partners in providing security in the country. So we will support them. However, they need us to support them, especially if it's within the law. But I can't put a timeline and say it's going to happen tomorrow because, you know, I don't have powers over Parliament. I can't dictate Parliament and tell them, pass this by tomorrow. I have no such powers.
Correct. Let's talk about Huduma Namba. First, are you registered?
Yes, I am.
You are registered?
Yes, absolutely. I will not be promoting something I don't believe in.
Just to be sure.
No, I'm registered, absolutely.
There's a question that people are asking, why is this coming before the census? And we're spending so much money in the census and we're doing registration now. Why don't we, first of all, find out how many we are in the country, then proceed to the next phase of having this Huduma Namba?
Well, you know, what I like about our country now, and I'm saying this very sincerely because, you know, we've come a long way as a country. There was a time when national or public policy was not debated. But you can see clearly that we are growing to become a mature democracy, a mature environment where we debate issues. Okay, never mind that sometimes some of the questions that are asked, you know, leave you a bit concerned about the levels of interest in the things we do, but it's okay. Look, there's a difference between acquiring a UPI, a unique personal identifier, and a census. The process of registering Huduma Namba is to enable every Kenyan to have a UPI, a unique personal identifier. In the US, it is called a social security number. Census is counting people, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We are not counting people. So this is not census. And no one should build a correlation between what we are doing and census. It had to happen at a particular time. You know, we started this drive. The president has been on this for the last 2 years, finding out a way of, first of all, enhancing service provision to our people. It is a fact, and I will admit here very openly, that some of the challenges that we have faced in providing services to our people are gatekeeping, rent-seeking, corruption related to management of public information. You know, Kenyans know how they go to offices and they are told the file is lost. The story of the file is lost. Because you are 7 or 8 people in one at any point in time. You are a different person at NHIF, you are a different person at NSSF, you are a different person at NRB, at the National Registration Bureau, you are a different person at NTSA where you got your driver's licenses, you are a different person at KRA where you have your PIN. And as you keep going along, you keep filling papers and you keep creating a new identity and a new record of what you are supposed to do. And these records are not in one place. Now, what is that one good reason why in this day and age, for a country such as ours, which has already broken records in terms of ICT innovations and ICT deployment, what is the reason why we can't put all these records in one place so that when you go for service, when you turn up at a counter in a government office, you are one person. You put out your name, you're Dennis Okari, and if they need to get your thumb, you put in your thumb, a biometric, and all your details are there. We can get, if you want to check your driver's license, it's there. I've even explained to rural populations when I've been moving around that, some of our mothers and fathers go to health centers or services and they're told to go back long distances because they forgot one document or the other. How is it that as a country, we cannot put all that information together so that we don't keep stressing our people in that kind of manner? So Huduma Namba, or our social security number, or our UPI that we are hoping everyone will get, is intended to make it easier for you to get services in any government office that you go to. It is intended to make it easier for you to obtain information about yourself or any transaction that you engage in directly without anyone telling you, come back tomorrow, buy me lunch, nunua chai, file is lost. That kind of nonsense that people are told all the time. We are moving public service to another level. I've had all these misconceptions about, we are collecting DNA. Sometimes I don't know whether to laugh or cry. How would, as an assistant chief in Fafi or an assistant chief in Monyanku in South Mogrango collect the DNA? How would that happen? And why would we do it?
But with every intention, the way you've just mentioned, there are always fears. And part of the fears that perhaps this personal data or information, somebody might hack the system or leak information about certain individuals. There are all those fears and concerns. How then do you address these fears with all these good intentions?
It's our responsibility as government, and I can look Kenyans in the face and tell them this. As government, we are committed, we are ready, and we have taken all the precautions to ensure that the data that we get is secured. Besides, we have a bill in Parliament right now, Privacy and Data Protection Bill. We hope when it's enacted, because Cabinet has already debated it and passed it and sent it to Parliament, we believe when it's enacted, it provides an additional layer of protocols and security requirements that we'll have to go through to ensure that this data is kept. But let me ask a question, Dennis. Do you know where your data on the driving license is? You must be having a driver's license.
Yes, I do.
You know where your data is, and are you sure that the data cannot leak from there? Do you know where your PIN data is? Do you know where your NRB, your ID card data is, and so on? The point I'm making is this: you have trusted your government so much. Why are you mistrusting us today that we cannot protect your data? Why are you mistrusting us at this point in time? You have M-Pesa number, and you do M-Pesa transactions all along. I mean, how is it that you are not worried that someone is going to hack into your M-Pesa record and so on and so forth? The truth of the matter is this, and it's a fact of life. I would be lying if I did not say that challenges related to data security are global now, and data science and data management is a matter that concerns a lot of people, and we can never be at a point where we say we are 100% foolproof in terms of any effort to try and interfere with our systems. People make efforts to hack banks. People make efforts to do whatever they do. But that is why every day, as government, we spend resources, we spend time. My colleagues at the Ministry of ICT are working very hard on this to ensure that we secure the data that we are collecting. I can assure Kenyans that we will stop at nothing to ensure that the data that we collect is safe and secure. We have nothing to worry about it.
I remember you told the president that because you report to him, that you will daily give him updates on the progress of this registration. And because the public would also want to know what's the current situation, how many people have so far registered, because this is an ongoing process. And the 18th May deadline, are we likely to extend it if you don't reach your target?
Yes, it's true. I report to the president daily. The president receives updates daily on the registration of Huduma numbers. It's a duty and an obligation that we have. It's our responsibility to ensure that we update the president daily, and I can confirm to you, we update the president daily on the registration of Huduma number. On Friday I was in Kisumu, and I said by Friday morning we had crossed the 5 million mark. Over 5 million people had registered. Today, because we collect data, we take reports from around the country 3 times every day in terms of our monitoring of this registration. We take reports in the morning from our regional commissioners and county commissioners. We take reports at midday, and we take final reports in the evening. And by midday today, we actually had crossed the 8 million mark. Till 18th May be the last day. Frankly, I don't think there is any reason to extend or to talk about an extension at this point in time, because we can project from the pace of registration that's going on now that by 18th of May or thereabout, all the Kenyans who need to register would have registered. So there will be no need for extension. But at any rate anyway, Kenyans need to know that we bought the kids, the KIMS kids that we have. We bought them, we have them. They're going to be with the assistant chiefs even after the registration is done, so that then those who for reasons are not able to register will register at that particular time. We want this to be a constant process so that we constantly update our databases of our people.
All right, let's talk about police reforms. And in this, there's so many things involved in this, and we may not have enough time to talk about everything. But in mind, let's talk about police welfare. Let's look at what the Inspector General of Police, our new Inspector General of Police, said the other day about building new police stations. Let's talk about the police uniforms. When are they likely now to start having these uniforms, many of the officers that we have in the country? And also the forensic center. I know that the plans have been quite successful so far. When are we likely to have a launch of it?
Well, those are many questions in one. So let me start with police reforms. We're doing well. What the Inspector General of Police said, it's a fact, is that we are now focusing on development of police stations and improving them. Because, the President's vision is that we also now migrate the provision of police services to the digital platform. We have instructions from the head of state to begin embarking on the development of a web-based OB, as it were. So we have to upgrade and update our police stations across the country. And the program has begun, and we are working on it. And I have to thank the members of parliament. Under the CDF arrangement we have right now, members of parliament can spend CDF resources on only 2 items, on education and security. A good number of members of parliament are working with us, and they are collaborating with us to build police stations and upgrade police stations in the various areas of jurisdiction, which is very good. So the focus is to improve the ecosystem within which our police officers work. And the target of improving police stations is critical, and we are going to stay on that for the time being. The police uniforms, you are the only person in Nairobi who has not seen police officers in their new uniforms.
Well, not very.
I was at the National Youth Service the other day, and we actually discussed with my colleague CS Margaret Kobia and our team at the National Youth Service. They continue making new police uniforms every day. Since we sat here, probably several pairs have already been made and been supplied. It was not going to be a switch on, switch off affair. We are changing the uniform of the entire of our GD workforce, and it will be gradual, but by the end of this year, everyone will have received their new uniform and they will have transited to the new uniform, as it were. The production of new uniforms is going on, supply of the same is going on, and we are kitting our police officers accordingly. And by the way, when we talk about the new uniforms, people only look at the clothes. We are even buying new boots for our police officers, and we are sourcing all those boots locally. We are not, buying any boots from out of the country, because we want to grow manufacturing in our country, and of course provide employment to our people, as it were. The ultra-modern forensic center that we are doing, which is probably going to be one of its own kind in this region. The DCI has been working hard on that, and we hope that by the end of the year it will be fully fledged and operational. The President, by executive order, moved the government chemist and the crime research center to our ministry, the intention being to try and coalesce the efforts of the crime research center and the government chemist together with the efforts of the DCI, so that our new forensic center is also going to benefit from synergies and synchrony brought by the crime research center and the government chemist, and we will have developed a national resource that is second to none in this region, and it will be faster and easier for us to crack some of the complex crimes that are committed that require forensic work to be done before prosecution can begin.
What for you is surprising after many, many years of having a police force and our police service, and now we're doing a head count and the numbers that are generally coming out, in light of recent cases of police imposters, motorists being flagged down by, fake police officers, and those kind of things?
Well, I wouldn't say surprised, because, reform is a journey. It's not, as I said, it's not a switch on, switch off affair. The reform trajectory is a journey, and let me be honest, even if I say so myself, we need to be grateful as citizens of this country that we are endowed with sufficient resources to do some of the things that we are able to do right now. The work that has gone into reforming our police service in our country, especially in the last 6 years, quite frankly, is phenomenal and historical. Our police officers are better equipped now and better prepared to deal with the challenges they deal with, on a day-to-day basis in trying to secure our country. I am not surprised, because you see, truth be told, the police did not have a human resource information management system that was operating on an electronic platform. And in a case like that, when you operate manual systems, it's expected, honestly, that there would be mistakes or there would be challenges. And I wouldn't like to spend my time on those, because, we have now completed that. We have a digital police human resource information management system. We have every police officer's detail with us, including biometrics and so on and so forth. Our Inspector General of Police is now properly enabled to deal with issues of deployment, to deal with issues of mobility and promotion, to deal with issues of performance, and so on and so forth, to track deployment history of police officers, where they have worked, and so on and so forth. And as we go forward, when we deal with issues of mobility, human resource related matters about the performance of individual police officers, all this is going to happen on an electronic platform, which increases objectivity, so that people are not promoted because of who they know at the headquarters, or people are not forced to bribe to be promoted, because those who promote them know they will be called to account. The records are going to be there, and those records can be queried, they can be seen by other people as you go along, so that it enhances objectivity and brings about an increased sense of professionalism in the way in which we manage the police force going forward. So I am not worried about that. I am happy that The president insisted and put his foot down and said he wanted it done, before the end of March. And by the grace of God, it was complete within the deadline he gave. And now we are better off. We are moving on now to register the NPRs and KPRs. The president directed that we register the staff of the prison service. We are already, working on that, because we want to also have all the records of our security agencies in place, so that we take scientific decisions and decisions that we can defend.
You ordered a fresh vetting of licensed gun owners. Where are we with that process? And what are you finding through this process?
The exercise has been going on, and of course, people have been asking questions why we did that. I'll be the first to admit that the firearm licensing regime in our country has been abused for a long time. We can't pretend about it. There are cases where, for example, people who ought not to be holding firearms have been licensed to hold firearms. People who have probably criminal records. In certain cases, individuals paid bribes to get firearm licenses. That's why, after looking at the environment and scanning the environment, looking at the reports of our security agencies, the president ordered that we relook at it, all over again and clean up the mess. So far, after about a month of vetting, we have confiscated over 750 firearms in the wrong hands. These are firearms held by people who could not justify and authenticate their certificates. These are firearms that are held by people who failed so many tests. They couldn't even demonstrate whether they have capacity to use the firearms, and so on and so forth. People who held firearms that had different records from the records in the certificates or licenses that they were carrying. And that is cause for suspicion. And so far, as I said, about 750 firearms have been confiscated. And it will amaze you, Dennis. We have confiscated over 13,000 rounds of ammunition. Can you imagine what that would do in the wrong hands, and so on and so forth? We are now requiring, as expected by the law, that firearm holders, before they are licensed, have got to undergo some sort of medical test, to ascertain their state of mind and so on. They have to demonstrate that they actually know how to use a firearm. And there must be sufficient justification that they actually deserve to have a firearm before they can be licensed to have a firearm. So the old regime of bribing your way around and so on and so forth is all gone. And then once we are done with this exercise, we'll now begin an operation to mop up the illegal firearms in the hands of criminals, because we know they are there. There are people who have gone through some of our porous aspects of our borders and smuggled in firearms and so on and so forth. We'll begin collecting those firearms.
Kenyans have been treated by display of certain individuals walking around with military grade of arms, and like you said, all those ammunitions that you found, and multiple guns. Can you explain then to Kenyans what is a person supposed to get as a gun, what type of gun, and how many guns is one person supposed to own? Because we did a story where there was a gentleman who walked in with several rifles. He owned several rifles, and they were all his during this vetting process.
They were all his illegally. That's why they were all confiscated, because he illegally obtained the rifles, and that's why we confiscated all of them. You see, that kind of impunity and recklessness has been part of our society for a very long time. Dennis, let's say the truth as it is. For a long time, a firearm has been a status symbol in certain quarters or certain classes of our population. I'm told of social places where, some young people in the past would go to demonstrate their wealth or their status by putting a pistol on the table in a bar. That kind of madness has got to come to an end, and that's why we are sorting this out once and for all. The act is very, very clear on what firearms as a civilian you can hold and how you are supposed to be licensed to hold those firearms. No one is allowed under the law to have military grade firearms for personal use. No one. And that's why anytime someone has stand up and there are firearms that they are not supposed to hold, we confiscate them. And we are going to go for each one of them. when crimes have been committed in certain cases, the police have stumbled upon someone with a cage of arms, and they defend the position and say, oh, I was licensed to have more than one firearm. It, plainly put, it's against the law. I know that the law provides for an opportunity where the license can be varied. You have got to go back to the board, to the firearm licensing board, to have your license varied. But that variation has got to be given within a framework of the law, and there must be sufficient justification for that variation to be given. At 10 red, let me ask you a question. If you live in Runda, you come today and you are licensed to carry, one firearm. Tomorrow you come and vary your license, you want 2, and then you keep asking until next year. Your license has been varied 10 times. You now have 10 guns. It's just plainly and simply illegal. That's what it is, and it's such abuse that caused us to vet this firearm licensing regime again.
But unfortunately, some of the politicians that we have seen are the ones who are having these many guns and those high caliber kind of guns. Do you have faith that after this vetting process, you'll finally deal with this issue once and for all?
Dennis, what you are describing is what used to happen in the past. What you are describing is what used to happen in the past. I do not think that as we carry on with this exercise, anyone is going to carry around military grade guns without approval. The Act provides that the Cabinet Secretary can provide an exception where necessary. For example, to rangers, people who are operating around the Laikipia region or Masai Mara and so on and so forth. But that same Act prescribes what kind of gun the Cabinet Secretary can provide an exception to. And by the way, for the avoidance of doubt, so that the public understands this, I will not give exceptions on my own. Every application for exception will be brought to me, and because we want to conduct ourselves in a transparent manner, I will take it to the National Security Advisory Committee, so that the heads of the security agencies themselves, because many of them are experts, they're generals, they're police commanders and so on, so that the NSAC itself is able to vet and advise me that there's justification for that exception. I have not, and I will not, I promise Kenyans, I have not and I will not give one exception without the approval of NSAC. Because the Inspector General of Police sits there, the CDF sits there, the Director of Intelligence sits there, and the heads of the security agencies sit there. They are the ones who will advise me on what exceptions to give. And only when that advice has come from NSAC will we give exceptions. But otherwise, it's not going to be that old business of coming around here and talking their way through.
So, Waziri, I want to give you an opportunity to look into that camera and speak to Kenyans. Your final words.
As I always say, God has blessed us with a wonderful country and a wonderful people. And every one of us who has been given an opportunity to make a contribution in a public office should be grateful to God. And one way of being grateful to God is by doing your honest bit and contributing to your country. That's what we are trying to do at the Ministry of Interior. That's what my colleagues are doing across the board in the security sector. I'm proud of each one of them, and look forward to greater development of our country as we move on. And a lot is happening in our security sector. The serious commitment that our President has made in improving this sector has begun to bear fruit. And lastly, please get your Huduma Namba. I will not force you to do that because the court cautioned us not to force you to do that. But I will ask you a very simple common sense question. In this day and age when you can get your services within minutes before a counter in an electronic version, why do you want to live in the Precambrian era of filling forms and walking around with files?
Thank you very much for your time, Waziri.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lily.